I have been doing for the past 40 years is to take different types of advances in science to people in my own way. And as you might have already observed, the approaches depend upon various media. Okay, it is one of the best way to approach is to use all the media that is available to us. But then, which language is the question? This question is always it comes to us regularly, mainly because when we started, okay, when I speak about Kannada being the language, I would like to speak about science. People ask me these questions. Are you a Kannada fanatic? Oh, no, I am not. I am also equally well versed in English. I am a polyglot. I can speak in English, Telugu, Tamil, and also Malayalam. But I would like to do it more because this is the language where I live and where a lot, the people surrounding me speak this particular language. Secondly, Kannada is not my mother tongue. Tamil is my mother tongue. I understand only Kannada. No, I understand many other languages. And I get paid more for communicating in Kannada, and therefore I am doing this. Definitely not. If you have worked with me, you will see that if I do the same thing in English, probably I will get 10 times more than what I get as a compensation for doing work in Kannada. I don't get a single paisa even now. Okay. Easy to communicate in Kannada. True. It is easy to communicate if you know how and why it has to be done. And then the last one is what I want to do, want to give something back to the society from where I come from. Okay, and that's a very ideal this thing. None of these are the motivating factors for me. Basically, the motivating factors is the large audience that I have in Karnataka. There are about 8+ crore of people, which is larger than any European nation. Okay, excluding maybe Great Britain or France or Germany. If you take smaller nations where the science communication efforts are largely talked about, I find that Karnataka is much, much, much bigger, both in number and also in space, okay, in geography. But then the local languages are very, very important to engage. Just now we heard Dr. Burman talking about how she went around and engaged the people. Definitely, she would not have spoken to those people in English. It would have been Assamese. And if she had to speak science, probably she would have found some adjectives or some metaphors to bring the same essence into the Assamese language. Okay, but then her topic, her subject is very close to earth. It is not a metaphoric science that we usually, abstract science that we talk about. And when we talk about abstract science, generally people think that the terminologies that are created or formed by scientists are absolutely important to communicate the ideas. I differ from that. I think that to communicate scientific ideas or to teach science, the principles of science, a communication is the most important, not the language. So you can use the language whichever way you want and then communicate. But there are always the fight between the scientists and the others that certain words are very specific in meaning and therefore that specificity is lost. But I can give hundreds of examples of research papers where ambiguity is more rather than a definitive conclusion or definitive meaning for a particular phenomenon. Okay, but then science needs English. That is another concept that has been drilled into our conscience. It is not necessarily true. We do transact science in English. I agree with that because most of us learned science through English, and the modern English came to India because through English education. All that is true, but it is not necessarily true that we have to use only English to communicate science, and that can be done even in Kannada very well. I have several examples of scientists who have done excellently well communicating in their own languages, very esoteric and complex ideas also. And right now I listen to a podcast by GV Pavan Kumar from ISR Pune, And that's a wonderful one. He uses both English and Kannada, a mix of that, and still comes out with a good, idea about what he is doing and what science is all about. The other motivating factor is the inaccessibility. Even if I speak English in Karnataka at one time, even if I knew a little bit of English, it is very difficult for us to access the information that is available in English everywhere. There are two things. The gatekeeping forces are that you have to have a subscription. Many of the journals or the sources of information are inaccessible. I worked in CFTRI, and if someone has to come and meet a scientist, there are lots of walls to cross, and then only they could meet the scientists. So all these things put us far away from the general public. And this was something that I learned through my career. And if you take the population of Karnataka, only about 10 to 20% of the people can speak or at least read English. The rest have to depend on Kannada for their information needs. And when I say information needs, that includes science also, economics also, or banking, or any other technical information. More often, the information is in English and it is also not accessible. So therefore, the essential thing for our people is to look for information elsewhere or be ignorant. And the second option is much easier because science doesn't affect us directly as in most of the cases. And that's one of the reasons why Burman and other team have to go regularly to villages and talk to the people and then talk to them about that, because the bird lives in our village. We know about that, and yet we don't care about that. And if we look at the problems that is surrounding us, many of the cases which are part of the science, and this is the basic reason. And so therefore, it is inaccessibility that's a problem. Then we have a constitutional mandate to make people scientifically tempered, okay, or to spread the awareness about scientific temper. This is more easier said than done. I have seen since my college days, I have been involved in these things, but even now it is very difficult. If you look at this video, I'll just give you a glimpse. So this is a village where I have 60 teachers surrounding me, and they were so superstitious about water divining using a coconut. And I didn't know what to do, so I had to demonstrate these things, tell them that it is a principle of physics, and tell them that they can also give it to them and show that it works everywhere, and therefore things could be taught. So it is very difficult because once you get into this culture and the rituals, and we say that the rituals are there because of a reason, then we have a problem. So this problem we have to tackle, and that's one of the reasons why. How do I do this? Okay, that's one of the reasons why we have to do science communication in regional languages. And then we have to bring these people also, if we have to bring about the changes that the Burman was speaking about, and a lot more changes in our behavior is needed, whether it is in the area of pollution, or whether it is in the area of climate change, whether it is in the area of conservation, or even in the simplest area of education. A lot of behavioral changes is required, and that behavior change can come only if they understand what we are doing and why we are doing what we do. And that is possible to tell 80% of the people only with Kannada. And that's what we did. And what we did was this. Okay, the challenges are many. One is that the media space is shrinking. It's not just, there is no print media, which we had long back. In 2010, just 15 years ago, there were lots of newspapers which are publishing special supplements on science. Those supplements are not there. And I could write for about 100 words, 1,000 words of article, a feature, then publish it easily. But now I get a call and saying that, sir, 300 words I want on this topic, and that's it. 300 words. And what concept can I explain? That's one reason. The second thing is the electronic medium is focused on something else. So we have no access to that, and it is one of the costliest mediums that to tap. The third one is, of course, the reducing reading and book reading habits. It's real. It's real. So how do we? I don't get discouraged by these things, but I think we need to change our ways of communication, use other medium, and that's how I started into podcasting. The podcasting also started with a simple thing. Let me come to that. Then most of the scientists say that we cannot speak in Kannada because the terminologies are difficult. I don't think that the terminologies are a burden anywhere. If I if I want to say that I ate a wonderful, tasty pizza, so the pizza doesn't become important. What becomes important is the eating process. So if the process is there, the nouns can be retained as it is and we can speak a lot. But what we do as scientists is that we create new words for the same old things. I find in biology, many of the terms being replaced by some new terms, probably because the author was not aware of it, or probably because he thought that this is a separate phenomenon, which may not be true. And in Kannada, many scientists do try to repeat that, means translate the same thing into Kannada, and that is where we run into problems. So to communicate, we need very few words to communicate the best ideas. And if you want to have a finer ideas or finer aspects of those things to communicate, then you need to have one or two extra words, but that is not the case. So usually, Saikam in Kannada is not mere translation. It is, you please speak out your heart about what you have learned, and that makes communication much, much easier. And AI is making things much, much easier. I'll come to that later. Access to information sources is very, very limited for writers who want to do these communicators. And that is something that is required. Okay, for independent writers. So this is something that is required in every language, not just in Kannada. It's also required in Telugu. It's also required in Tamil, and maybe also Bengali is fine. It's also required in Marathi. And of course, the other languages require almost every one of these things. In Kannada, we are a little better. If one has to do something in Indian language, one has to be like this, okay, with multiple language. I wanted to put Kali here with 12 hands and all. Then I thought maybe I will get a, X in my face. So I thought I will restrict to this. We have to do a lot more thing than this, because many of the things that support English literature or English science communication are not available in Indian languages. Graphic artists, graphic art, or even cartooning. I know that Burman would have had a lot of difficulties to get those cartoon pictures done, and photos related to science not accessible. So if I want to publish a magazine, if I want to do something, if I want to create a video, I don't have the clippings or the photos to go with that. So these are very, very crucial factors if we have to do science communication in Indian languages. So creating an army of science communicators is easy when compared to getting these resources. And what I have done is on the right side. I would not like to talk about that much, but then these are some of the things that I want to, give as an example that science communication in Indian languages is acceptable to a large number of people. When I started the podcast, Jana Suddhi, I had only 20 listeners, and it was a small group, and it was only for our satisfaction we did. Now I have completed 900 episodes, and it is a voluntary run effort. We don't have a studio. We don't have a regular professional artist in that. 13 community radios are using this. And this is science that appears in Nature, science that appears in Science, and science that appears in PNAS or Current Science or other journals. So we pick up from that and make stories, and these stories are also accepted by rural people. When I say community radios, only 3 community radios, I think of the 13 community radios, 3 community radios are in the urban area, and rest of the community area, radios are in rural areas. They broadcast my podcast twice in a week. And if I don't send them in a week, then they frantically ask me, because there is no content available for science anywhere. So one thing that I would suggest is that our institutes can look at these things and use the network that we have created through Janasuddhi, and at least reduce their cost of dissemination and use this and increase their reach. That is possible. Okay. The Kutuhali Kannada is a magazine which was started as a part of a project that we had with Vigyan Prasad. When Vigyan Prasad closed 2 years ago, I got lots of requests saying that can you please send us the Kutuhali Kannada? It's sent as a PDF magazine because we do not have money to print it and distribute. Printing and distribution costs are very high. So we still follow the digital mode. What happened was that I'm getting support from a lot of writers. They provide me content free of cost, and we produce it free of cost, and we publish it free of cost. I have 1,500, 1,800 subscribers on email, another 1,300 on WhatsApp, and it is distributed. It is distributed transversely through teachers group to a lot of places. One interesting one interesting episode, or rather anecdote, that I would like to share with you is that recently I was talking to a group of teachers in Udupi, and a Kannada teacher came to me and said, "Are you Kollegala Sharma?" I said, "Yes." And she was so thrilled because she was reading Kutuhali Kannada. She is a Kannada teacher. So my magazine was targeted at science teacher, but it also reaches a lot of other people. And that's another thing. And what you see on the left on the screen is a small panel that I create every day and publish it for the last 4 years. It has been going on in one of the school magazines that is published by a leading newspaper here, Vijay Karnataka. And I keep on doing that because I don't get any money for this in any case, but then I want to keep the students up. Last week, when I wanted to stop this exercise, because one man army is not an army at all. Okay, so I wanted to stop this, but the newspaper requested, "Sir, please continue." The reason, these are cut and stored and archived by students in schools, and that gives them information in a nutshell. That was one of the reasons. So these are many of the things. And we started on science theater. That's another thing that is favorite. We are now celebrating 8th Science Theater Festival, probably the only kind of science theater festival in India, where we have 4 new plays. 7 years ago, when we started, when we thought that we should use theater also as a medium, we had only skits being played in the schools and nothing else. And that was also not with the professional support. And when we started with a professional theater with 3 amateur theater groups, there was a skepticism saying that, can we really do this? And today it is a movement in Karnataka. We have created 21 new plays in the last 7 years. And one play on Richard Feynman went around across Karnataka and was performed 35 times. And the Leelavati was played for about 12 times. All these in different places to new audiences. We have created a new audience type for theater in Karnataka. And we have also, I think, broken some walls. We have been performing in Indian Institute of Science campus once in every 3 months, a Kannada play. And that's what it is happening. Here also,
Sir,
one
uh,
incident. Yeah, I just finished. Here
yeah.
also, I have one incident to recount. Recently, we had Salim Ali being staged in one of the venues where his very close confidant was also present among the spectators. And what he said was truly revealing to us. The play, he said, brought back all the memories of Salim Ali, and he could see Salim Ali on the stage. So we try to keep the facts and fiction in a balance and present it in a way, and these are possible. Similarly, what Barmanji is doing with folk songs is another way of doing. So a lot of things can be done. And where do I go from here? So one of the things that I'm planning and actually doing it as in a campaign mode is to use AI, the facilities that AI tools give us in creating new writers, because I don't have to worry about terminology, I don't have to worry about anything, or even translation or anything. I could tell them how to use that and then use a dictionary, refine it, and do that. So the first step can be easily taken, and the subsequent progress is easier. Similarly, for podcasting or video creation or other things, a lot of tools are available with AI. In fact, Janasuddhi uses extensively Gemini AI for a voiceover. I just make a script and create a voiceover which sounds almost human, and that is also accepted very well. I've been trying it with the community radios also, that is being accepted very well. So these are some of the things that are possible. So in future, I do not have to worry about um, new writers or other things. We can use these tools, create new writers who are very hesitant to use Indian languages in their communication efforts. I also tell scientists when we ask them to present PowerPoint in Kannada, they say that no, we can't type in Kannada, we can't do in Kannada. Right now, write it before you. I can use this. If I have a co-pilot, I can translate the whole slides immediately into Kannada or Hindi or Marathi. So, what we lack in communicating is the aptitude. That's what I say. If we decide, it is possible. Okay. And sometime back, we also were thinking of translating text to different Indian languages. AI makes it easier, but a human interference is required to make it much, much better. And that's it. And on the right hand side, you will see a illustration drawn by a ninth standard student, some 12 years back, when I wanted to produce a book. And I had all the stories and I wanted something different to be done. I asked that girl, because she was interested in drawing, I asked her to read the stories and create cartoons. She created and we refined and we had published it. I put this cartoon because today she is a science communicator. She has done her PhD in mm, neurobiology, and is now joining me in many of our efforts. And that's what happens if we start doing it. So the for Canada especially, I need collaborators to produce videos. These are not available much, and even if they are available, they are not of good quality. Okay. The second thing is citizen science. What Burman is doing, or what H.S. Sudhira is doing, or what other people in Atri and others are doing in conservation. But we need more of these kind of efforts in other areas. One is pollution prevention in urban areas, and of course, the plastic pollution. Can we do that? Can we get people to dance around a garbage, this one, and say that this is not the? It's easier to do that in conservation and other things, but we need to put in a little more effort to convince them that these are the problems of future, and these are the solutions that we can have in future. Both can be communicated if we use Indian language to do that. And with that, I stop here. We can have a lot more discussion through questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think the discussion has already started in the chat, and it's a pretty good discussion. I mean, the audience, the participants are already interacting among themselves. So, firstly, I will thank you, and I will ask Shrestha to take over. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for all these enriching discussions, Kolegula sir and Purnima ma'am also. So what we'll quickly do is we'll start with the discussion because we already see a lot of interesting questions and answers starting up in the chat itself. And that is exactly the point why we wanted to hold this roundtable in the first place, so that we do have these discussions and we try to forge in some collaborations like you rightly pointed out, Caligula sir, that we should have these things to look forward to in terms of how tech is coming up, how people are utilizing different initiatives. So definitely, what we'll quickly do is since I actually tried to point it out during the waiting room itself, but just in case, the discussants, if it's possible, if you could please rename yourselves with your name and a slash as a discussant, that would be really great because what we want to now do is we'll be asking questions at this point, and we'll be also having live polls going on along. So the discussants especially we'll request, but also the listen-only attendees who are here already. What we do is we'll have these discussions and polls ongoing together, so it'll be interactive session. It's not just only going to be listening around or talking around. So most of us, because this is a topic that course needs lots and lots of inputs and lots of initiative and impetus from us, which is why this is just one of our first steps that we are taking today to have more and more discussions along this platform. So we'll quickly start up where today what we are going to now do is we'll post up these questions one by one, where we'll discuss today firstly with the biggest enabler, and then next later on we'll talk about the biggest challenge as well. But a quick show of poll, what we are now going to do is we are going to launch these few polls that we have. So first, we'll quickly launch about where you are joining us from and what is your current primary occupation at this point. So we already have this sort of data collected from your responses in the registration, but this is important for us at the live discussion because this will help us to understand where we can take this discussion forward ahead in the next segments as well. So if we quickly get the answers, your screen would have popped up with the poll right now. Right. So I'll just wait for another couple of minutes. We've almost got our responses, just a few more. All right. Just a quick countdown,
Okay.
maybe. We're almost here. Yes. I hope you've already answered the polls for most of us. So what we'll now do is we'll quickly start with the first question. That is to understand what is the biggest enabler that you all think is having in terms of communicating science in the Indian languages. So if we could have a show of hands, we'll unmute the participants and then we can ask them one by one to quickly share their views. But we'll keep it restricted so that most of us do get the chance to speak. Otherwise, if you think that you can type in quickly, then please more than welcome to share that in the chat as well. So for the first question we have, that's in terms of what's the biggest enabler you feel would be for communicating science in Indian languages? So, Kolegula sir, if you could begin.
Yeah. Biggest enabler. The biggest enabler is, of course, the language. The Kannada language, if you want to know about the language, it's very nice language to speak, to listen to also. It's a wonderful. Of course, every language is good to listen to, but it has got a lot of vocabulary which can be tweaked to bring in Kannada also. Okay, somewhere we missed the bus somewhere, and we can still do that. The biggest challenge is the attitude. Should I borrow a word from other language or should I not borrow? This is one of the things that is stopping us from creating new terminologies. The other thing is, I think our hesitancy in talking in Kannada on science, and that we have to forgo. Many of scientists with whom I have discussed, my own colleagues, they would hesitate to speak to the audience even when their mother tongue is Kannada. They think that the terminologies are a block. I don't think so, and these terminologies can always be filled up. The one example that I want to give is, we had a tribal group coming into CFTRA. I was talking to them and all. It was so surprising to know that what we consider as very common among us, routine, was very rare among them. A small a dish that is available. So these kind of gaps are always existent, even in the concepts, and that has to be filled in. There's one more area where I think the science communication has not looked into, is specifically in special need children or special need people. They also need science, but we have not looked at it, and we have not done efforts enough to reach them also. So these are some of the areas that I look, specifically looking at Indian languages. We need to look at there are a few things that happen. When someone writes with a lot of enthusiasm, he would have created a new word, and that word is lost forever after that. So we need to create a crowdsourced repository of these new words for new terminologies so that the language becomes stronger. And when choosing these words, the public will choose whichever is convenient, whichever is easy, whichever is comprehensible. So that is a natural selection, or rather, I would say public selection, that can happen. And but we need to have a lot of options in our own languages for terminologies, so that this particular pretext or the reason given out not to communicate in science in Kannada will not be there. And that's what I do. The second thing is, looking at the future. Looking at the future, probably the communication doesn't depend on a specific language. It doesn't have to. So the AI can do it much, much better. I'll just give one small example. 3 years ago, if I had Googled for Kollegala Sharma in a Kannada script, I would not have got any response. But today, if I do that, I get a lot of response, including the IndiaBioscience article that was published some time ago in English in IndiaBioscience, also comes in Kannada. So the reverse can also happen. And if I look at it, if the Google search, statistic gives Kollegala Sharma in English is only 56,000. Whereas in Kannada, if I type, it is 88,000. So I stop there.
Sure. Thank you, sir. So we'll go with Rohini next. Yes. Rohini?
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. I don't know. Maybe it was by mistake. If someone else has raised, you could give it to them. I was typing something else. Hello?
Yes,
Yeah,
Piyush,
hi.
can you speak now? Right. Thank you.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, please. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, what can we say in front of Kollegala Sharma ji? I've also had the opportunity of working on a couple of small things with him, and and I think the biggest enabler actually is uh, enthusiasm for wanting to communicate science in English, but also in other languages. And and then there are lots of people, collaborators. I work in English, but I am currently publishing in Marathi, Hindi. We are also working in Kannada. Um, and I think that it's really collaboration that is the biggest enabler, and the sheer enthusiasm or the wish or the joy it gives us when you see it in print, whether it's online or hard print in different languages, and the kind of responses you get. Just to give one example, there's a magazine called Kishore that's published by the Department of Education, Government of Maharashtra, and they have a printer of something like 70,000 every month. And they give the phone number of the author at the end of the article. And every time I publish an article in this magazine, at least there'll be one or two phone calls from, I don't know, rural Maharashtra. Sometimes it's a kid calling, sometimes it's a teacher calling. And they simply call and say, we really enjoyed the article, or they sometimes have a question. So I think there is a lot of joy in working in Indian languages. And of course, I'm trained in English, so I'm not really good at writing in Indian languages, but that's not really a limitation. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, can I comment on Piyush this one? He wrote an article in Kannada for Kutuhali Kannada. All that we did was to use AI, translate that, and edit it and publish it. So the possibilities are now much, much, much large.
Right. Definitely. AI, of course, is going to be one of our next questions, but we'll probably bring it at this juncture. That in terms of asking all the participants here, do you think AI is going to be the enabler, or it's going to become a challenge over a period of time when we consider communicating science in Indian languages? So, participants, please, we are eager to hear your views on this. Yes, sir, Kolegula, sir.
Yeah, I think we should look at it as an enabler. So it has its drawbacks, obviously, but then it also gives us a lot of tools to work with. Say, one example that I can give you is Piyush was struggling to get a translator to publish his article in Kannada. All I told him was to use his copilot on the Word, translate and send it to me, and then we had a human intervention, edit it, then publish it. So that reduces a lot of the process, and a lot of time is also saved, and that is very important. And AI tools can definitely help. I can give you songs here right now, several of the songs that I have created for science, and which are making rounds. So it's easier.
All right.
Rather, I would say that a person who is not competent in certain faculties can definitely use those if he has some ideas about that. And that is a great enabler.
Surely, sir. Rohini, you've raised your hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Sir. There are many good tools and they also simplify the process, especially when you are translating something like a book. It's very difficult to just creatively translate or even accurately translate everything. But what I also feel is that there are many local efforts where people are generating different resources. For example, in Marathi, Google Input Marathi is what we all use, or Google Translate English to Marathi. But there's also one tool called Khand Bahale, and it gives a lot of options, especially accurate synonyms for different words in Marathi. So, in addition to the AI tools, I think these local efforts where people are also vetting what the AI is translating or what the AI is giving, that is also important.
Yes. So, anyone else who would like to contribute to the discussion ahead as well, please raise your hand, or we can unmute you quickly. And we're also looking at the chat box as well. There are definitely great inputs coming in for our questions. So thank you for keeping the chat active as well to everyone. And we also are sharing links. Our team is also doing that behind the scenes. So for all the tools. You could also go through the links, or we can also look forward to having them shared post our session and discussion at this point. So, do we have anyone else raising their hands? Yes, we see Dennis, and Dennis, you are unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Okay, so for AI for translation, there is a lot to be said because right now most of the AIs that we have are not Indian, obviously. We have, somebody mentioned Bashini earlier. Bashini is one of the initiatives, but obviously Bashini is not building its own AI. Bashini is basically supporting others to train AIs in regional languages. So still you have a base of an AI which does not have an Indian context or has very little Indian context, and then it's been built on to translate stuff into Indian languages. So basically what India needs is possibly what India AI is doing. And I'm not sure what India AI is doing either. I'm hoping that they are building their own base model. I'm hoping they're not using something like DeepSeek and then building upon that. But yeah, if India builds its own AI model and then has a translation service available, that would be the ideal solution. But from what is available right now, there are, Gemini does the best job. We use it, Gubi Labs in Research Matters. We have been communicating science in almost 8-10 languages now. And we have been using AI for a lot of English and regional stuff as well. So Gemini really does work well, but it will obviously make a lot of errors. So the human in the loop is very important, and the human in the loop often, sometimes at least, has a lot more work to do when it's in AI translation. So yeah, we're not there yet with AI, at least.
Sure. If anyone else wants to contribute to that, otherwise, I have a very pertinent question coming up from Dennis's input, which would then probably steer the question in a slightly different tangent. But if there are any more inputs to this for, about AI, please, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you quickly. All right, then. My question would have been then to Dennis and everyone else, considering we are talking about having AI built up on Indian languages and contributing for better outreach in science communication. Do you think if you were given this option or asked this question that you can contribute your articles or your outreach efforts as part of training the AI in this case? So would you all be willing to participate in such an exercise?
Okay, so mine is already available everywhere. So that can be
Right.
definitely used. Both the text for the podcast is also available. That I can make it available for training, and the podcast is already available on YouTube. If you so that can also be used, and there's no stop on that. And as regards, Dennis gave an example, but he didn't specifically tell about this. We had a tie-up and we started using AI together, I think, and I am guilty of not continuing with that, Dennis. Publicly I acknowledge, and this should the collaboration between various people and the watch or what I say monitoring of the AI output. If that can be done collaboratively and collectively, probably the languages will be better. For example, the Kannada, the 3 years ago when ChatGPT came, the response that it was giving is totally different from what I get today from Gemini AI or from ChatGPT. Totally different, and that's because we have started using it a lot and training it a lot. Okay, but Microsoft also is doing a lot of work on Copilot, and in fact, in Karnataka, we already have what is called a Shiksha Copilot for students in government schools. They can ask questions in Kannada they can listen to an English text in Kannada. A lot of these things are possible in that. And that is something that will come in the future and that will help us. So using this language to build the gaps between the science literate and the science non-literate is very important, and that we can. I'm very always hopeful this we can do.
Dennis, you can speak.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
First of all, sorry, sir, I forgot to mention that, yes, we did have a collaboration with Kolegala sir, where we produced a Kannada podcast, which went out in our newsletter. That was completely AI generated. That really did work. And the problem was there are words that will get mistranslated, and then you have to sit and work on the word to phonetically sound it out so it sounds correctly in the translation and so on. Uh, as for your training thing, making data available for training is not really an issue. Any data available in public domain is technically good to go for AI training. The challenge technically is the training part. The fact where an AI gives you an output and somebody has to sit and go through the output. They have to clean the output and then send it back into the AI and tell this is what is expected. And whenever it makes a mistake, somebody has to call it out and somebody has to explain why that is a mistake as to. So yeah, the training part is what is actually holding us back. Like, for example, Anthropic uses a host of outsourced AI data trainers, and a lot of them are from India. You might have heard of a company like Soul AI or Outlier AI or so on. They have a lot of Indians who are sitting and cleaning up the AI responses, basically. So training AI is happening from India, but we don't have a base model. Again, the thing comes down to we don't have anyone sitting and training AIs. We just have people building on existing AIs. So people are taking what Gemini API is giving, and then they're training a little bit to suit their needs, but we don't have a general model which gets regional contexts everywhere. So yeah, that's what we basically need.
All right. So definitely lots of views coming in. If there is anyone else online who would also want to contribute currently. Otherwise, we do have definitely great questions coming in from our discussants already in the chat. We'll slowly start taking up those as well. So anyone else who would want to talk about AI and their experience in communicating in Indian languages so far? So please raise your hand, we'll unmute you. Sure, then. What we'll do is we'll now quickly move on in the paucity of time. We'll quickly move on to the questions we have received on chat. And these are really great questions coming, making our discussion really lively and engaging. So the first question we see from Rohini here is that for any regional language, there are a lot of local initiatives for SciComm. So in terms of assessing the impact of such initiatives, how can one go uh, about doing this impact assessment for these? I hope that's the question, Rohini, correct? Right. You can yes, unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, that's a question.
Sure. Thank you. So can we have inputs from all those who are present here, even in the chat or on unmuting themselves, so we can go ahead with that as well. Shuli, do you want to start with this first? Sure. Just 1 minute. Yes. Now you can unmute yourself. See.
Thank you so much. I might not have a very clear answer like most others. I see Piyush's hand up there. I have been thinking about this. It's the numbers that Kuligala shared were fantastic. I don't think we have been able to do that for many languages. I think Bangla might be an exception. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't think we have been able to do that. I do think often about, what happens after we have a podcast in place, or there is an article in Bangla or Hindi written in newspaper. What after that? Does it lead to any change in behavior? Or was that the goal that we had in mind when we wrote that article? So I do think a lot about that. And again, as I said, I would not have a very clear, answer in mind, but I think what we want accomplished after we have written that article or podcast in a certain language, and our choice of language should also decide how impact would look like. Uh, I would be happy to actually listen for clearer answers than mine from Piyush and Isha.
Sure. So,
Okay, great.
yeah, Piyush and then Isha, we'll go to, and then Kulegla, sir, we'll come back to you. So, yes, please go ahead, Piyush.
Yeah, so I can maybe talk about more in a very specific context, not necessarily a magazine article, but for example, I'm working with groups in Delhi, outside Delhi in Faridabad, and also a tribal group in Gujarat. These are typically either after school programs or children homes kind of settings. And there, one of the challenges, it's nature education primarily, and the challenges one faces is that there isn't good material or there isn't enough material in these languages that the teachers and the children are familiar with. And if you look at the tribal languages of Rathwi or Bhili, there's virtually nothing in print. But there is a lot of, at least in that context, there's a lot of knowledge in the community amongst the children, amongst the teachers. And so, I definitely have found that it's far more effective to use the language, to use a sort of visual and textual language, but which is much closer to the communities you're working with. It's far more effective. We haven't really evaluated it against something else, but it's so evident. And I would think that the same challenges you face for even communicating science in English would be the ones that you would face. The evaluation would be the same that you would face for any other language. The same challenges in terms of, or the same methods. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I responded, but this is what comes to my mind. Thanks.
Sure. Isha, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, my
Yes.
voice is audible.
Yes, you're audible, Isha.
So, hello everyone. I'm Isha Parikar. I have touched to this question for like while I was figuring out how we can whatever we are preparing for the IOG grant that I am working on. So how we can measure the impact of that. So one thing which came into my mind was thinking about the giveaway to that society from that content. For example. We are creating infographics for postpartum depression, and we want to assess the social impact pan India. So the technology will help us in this case. Maybe it is paid, unpaid, but for example, look for the one opportunity that there can be a scan code given, and the people who are interacting with that content with having some motivation to that they are getting benefit from that. You can give that scan code, and now you can assess how many codes, how many scanning has been happened, and there are platforms that give you analytics of how much have interacted, how much have been done on that basis. So this could be one option. So a social giveaway from that project. So maybe you are giving a PDF which will be helpful for them, and you are getting their email ID and landing their PDF inside the email box, which was helpful for them from that program. So that could be a way of thinking how they interact the content. And other option could be interacting, the keeping tab on social media interactions. So that could be your, and it depends upon how you run your campaign and get the feedbacks from there. There are feedback forms options. So that technology enablement has to be happen to measure the impact and give the statistics about this. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Isha. Anyone else in the room who would like to add their points as well, if they haven't done so in the chat? Yes. So, Lekha, I think, has again touched upon a very important point, which we are again seeing this as one of the recurring discussions when we have these topics, the importance of collaboration and how can regional science communicators come together and have this sort of collaborative efforts at one place together. So, what do you think would be helpful to build such a platform is what I'll ask instead. That what kind of platform or what sort of engagement measure you would like to see when you would be given that opportunity to co-create or build such a platform together. So inputs are welcome from everyone here currently. Yes, Rohini, 1 minute. Yes, you can now unmute yourself.
Yeah, so from experience, I can tell that I have worked with other like colleagues who have studied in Marathi, like science in Marathi. I have studied in the English medium, but they've studied in Marathi medium. So their science, their language is better than mine. So I have worked together with them to write things, to also create videos and podcasts. And that has helped us a lot because I have written the scientific part, but they have helped me clean it or write it in a more presentable manner in Marathi. So they know the correct words, they know what analogy will fit better. And that sort of has helped me a lot. Of course, it was during COVID that most of these collaborations took place, but that was also the need of the time. So I think such situations give us and now because of social media, we can always connect with like-minded people and we can start off. So it's not a challenge at all. I think it's an enabler.
Surely. Uh, Anyone else who would like to add?
We have to take the first step, that's all. And that is the most important thing in collaboration. And to tell you frankly, all the projects that we are running right now under Kutuhali are under collaborations. We have no funding. We have nothing to depend upon anybody. In fact, Jana Shuddhi doesn't have any professional artists giving its voice. So there are housewives, there are students, there are interested people who came forward to give their voice. All that I did was to ensure that they are not troubled too much. So they have the, the feeling of giving to the society, but at the same time, they don't get the feel that somebody is exploiting them. Although consciously, I know that I am exploiting them for nothing. Okay. But this can work out in many cases. And in case of Piyush, for example, he was looking for a translator. And the win-win situation was that he would give me to publish in Kutuhali and we will translate it for him. So that's just a collaboration. So one by one, both of us benefited from that. Similarly, with the research matters, what Dennis was mentioning. So we are good at Kannada, so we can translate using their AI tools at the same time. And they gave us access to AI tools, so which we used and which we translated, then refined, and then gave back to them in a voice format. So the podcast could be done by them. So many of these things can be worked out. And I find that the technology is a great enabler because we can be far off in geographical distance, but still we can do. I have used voice from a person residing in US. And during COVID, we created a radio drama remotely. Remotely in the sense we had a script. The characters were in several different places. They recorded it in several different places on several different things. We put them together into one single drama. So many of these things are possible. So the tools are available. How do we use them, and how do we keep our egos outside the room is important. And that once happens, things will be easier.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Isha?
Hello. Hello again. So that collaboration word, I see here, I see more depth into the word collaboration because I will tell you through my experience how the problem was there and how the depth of thoughts has gone into solving this, how it can happen. So given that we have created an infographic page and now we want to create that into multiple Indian languages. So I work on Adobe Illustrator. There are only 9 to 10 Indian languages that are supported on Adobe Illustrator. If I want to go beyond those languages, for example, that problem is very in the gravity in that community and there is a tribal language happening. So I need to find a person who is science person who can translate it, who can now graphically integrate my data into that visual. So that is the biggest disabler for me, because once the translated material is created, now the dissemination part come. How you want to disseminate that? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to give printed material? Do you want to make a podcast of it? So and when once you decide the dissemination part of the media or the channel which you are going to disseminate the material, after that begins your challenge of thinking what collaborators could come into. Do you want a presenter? Do you want a science educator? Do you want a person who can handle the podcaster in that language? The one of the biggest problem was when, if I get a translated material and now I have to integrate, for example, Manipuri, I don't recognize, even if I could integrate the material inside, I don't know if that is true or not. So if I see that the execution of this material require many expertise inside this project, and that gives you a more big funding scenario where you want to put funding and ask them to come and collaborate with you. So this all has to be thought about when you're thinking about translating things into Indian languages. Thank you.
I have this one for whoever is doing multiple language programs or planning these things. Okay, when you write in English, please see that the writing in English is, as far as possible, amenable for translation, what we call as translatability. What happens is that many times, even in India Bioscience or sometimes the Mongabe articles that we translate, in English it sounds very, very good, extremely good. But when we start translating, it sounds bizarre. And that is because the syntax that is used in English is completely English. So you also have to keep in mind that Indian languages have a different syntax. Accordingly, if you use some of the adjectives and other things carefully, probably the translation will be much easier, and the difficulties that you are mentioning will be much, much less. So this is how we work with research matters also. This is how we work also. And as regards the forums, and I don't know what kind of returns you are looking at, okay, or why you are looking at. And if you are not very particular about that, see, for example, the Kutuvali Kannada will translate and publish anything that is science from any language. Okay, if you have something in English, please share with us. Cartoons we would welcome most because we are short of it and we would like to do that. And we will acknowledge the credit and all, but it will go along with our magazine. So this is always possible for everything. And I thank Piyush to understand that and do that with us. And we did publish his article and also brochures. So these kind of things can be done with collaboration. That's why I said we just have to have an open mind and do that. We can do it.
Thank you. Dennis, and then quickly coming back to Piyush, and since we are running a little bit extra on time, we'll then quickly move to Momita, who will just wrap up this session for us. But please, in the chats, in the meanwhile, while Dennis and Piyush are sharing, others are very welcome to share their thoughts on the chat as well. So Dennis, you can go
I'll
ahead.
quickly do this. So collaborations, I don't think really are a problem. There are lots of platforms. I think a lot of us are part of the same WhatsApp group. So there are WhatsApp groups. That group has been splitting into smaller groups based on regions. So platforms for collaborations are not short. The problem is who will foot the bill. When a collaboration happens, there has to be somebody who's taking care of the finances. And that has always been the problem for regional communication. So first, most important thing is to find who is actually consuming regional science communication content. Outreach, Purnima Barman and Kolegala both mentioned outreach. Yes, it works only with regional communication because you're going into rural areas. You're meeting local people, local languages is what will work. But when you're communicating research papers or the research happening in top institutes and stuff, Vishu Guttal, if you know from IISc at CESIISc, he used to publish his abstracts in Kannada at some point. Who consumed that? We don't know. Does the research community really need science communication in regional languages? or is the consumers only lower education, school level kids, in which case we have to completely rethink our communication strategies and everything? Do we need communication of research happening in English and only educational communication happening in regional languages? There are lots of things to be thought of, but there is no data. Research Matters has been doing this. We have been trying various things, and every time we publish a regional content, it does not do well compared to anything we do in English. So we don't know who the audience are. We really struggle to find, when we do our outreach things, like when we do our frog workshops or biodiversity related thing, or urban planning or history of Bangalore or whatever, their local languages easily works. But when you're communicating research or when you're communicating complex ideas, I really don't know who the audience is or who's going to foot the bill. So at the end of the day, you have to understand regional communication will depend on some sort of philanthropy. Somebody is doing it out of some altruism. No, not altruism either. It's probably some marketing strategy of a CSR or government's own marketing strategy. Either way, it'll depend on fellowships, grants, handouts, things like that. That's the only thing. So collaborations, I don't think is the problem. I think resources are the problem.
Got it.
I
Piyush?
just have a comment to Dennis this one, because I have been closely associated with whatever Vishu Guttal was doing and many others, and I have helped them translate many of those abstracts and all. The idea is that these abstracts, if they are available to the public, okay, that will be much easier. One of the way when what's his name? He was working with the crickets, so his abstract, when he gave it to the collaborator or the people who worked with him in the team, and they were all hired laborers and other things and others, but who knew Kannada, they were very thrilled to read and understand what they were doing. Okay, so I can catch a number of crickets, but I don't know why I am catching. When I know the why, it will be easier. So this was one of the reasons. But Dennis' question is right: who are the users? So is there any use for that? I think once we create this, the use will come on its own. Take for example, we create press releases every day and night, and we send it to the media. But if the abstracts can be in Kannada, in easy acceptable form, like the PNAS publishes the significant findings, and that will be much easier. CSIR has already started putting up panels of their important papers on the social media, but then they also have to be in Indian languages. Then only the reach will be much better. So we have to use all the media and all format possible to reach out. Sometimes we don't get the statistics of outreach, whatever we have done, unless it is very direct. Even in the direct, 100 people may be there, but only 10 would have picked up your message, and the 90 would have, I would say, interpreted the message in their own way, in their own context. So therefore, it's not always true that the likes that we get on or downloads we get on YouTube are a measure of what is happening. Okay, but when you get a call from a person who is in Bangalore but who has listened to some radio somewhere and then calls you and then asks about the information, and that is where the impact is. And that has happened many times. And Kannada, I have found that whenever an article about IISc has been published in Kannada, the professors are approached much more than when it is published in English. And the researchers themselves have said. So there is a scope for that also. And I always feel if our plate is not full, how can we say that this dish is good and that dish is good? That's all.
Got it,
Thank you.
sir. So quickly, Piyush, yes.
Yeah, I just want to narrate one incidents of collaboration. So there's a journalist called Arun Singh in Panna, Madhya Pradesh. And I sent him a book that Pradeep Krishan had written on the jungle trees of central India. So he's in the heart of central India, but the book is available to people in Delhi and Bombay, but not to the people in the landscape. And not a big surprise, he found a fantastic tree in the collector's compound, which he wrote about. He runs a blog, he wrote about it. It got published also, I think, on Village Square. So I think collaboration is also, at sometimes it's also where we are probably in more privileged settings, and the people we work with, we also have to ensure that information flow is happening in ways where they can appreciate or they can access information that is not easily accessible to them. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So, great discussion and engaging chat, everyone. And truly, truly thankful. But for the vote of thanks officially, I'd go back to my colleague Momita, who will do that. And we'll hopefully continue these discussions in the upcoming sessions as well. So, yes, Momita.
Thank you, Shrishta. And as we conclude today's insightful roundtable, it's clear that communicating science in Indian languages holds really immense potential to kind of democratize knowledge and foster inclusive learning. While we have identified significant challenges that ranges from linguistic diversity, resource limitations, budgets, finance, and varying literacy levels as well. The enablers, such as community engagement, technology, such as AI, and the dedicated translators, offer promising pathways forward. I think that's all came up from the conversation and discussion today. And I think our collective efforts can bridge these gaps, ensuring that science reaches to every part of the nation. And we hope this conversation continues beyond today. And if any of the participants would like to lead such discussions, we will be glad to provide a platform for future events. And please do so, and to continue this kind of events and efforts. And thank you all for your valuable contribution and for your participation. Thank you all.